right, this is Neural Search Talks at the tail end of KM World 2023 and Enterprise Search and Discovery. We're just about to fly out back, and with me on the interview is Amr Awadallah, who's the CEO and founder of Vectara, one of the cool startups in the neural search space. And he gave a very interesting talk about neural search at the conference. So I'm glad to have you on this show for an interview, Amr.
It's good to be here. It's good to be here, Jacob.
First of all, let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the space. So at KM World 2023, surely AI and generative AI was the star of the show. What are some of the main sub-trends of that you are seeing right now?
Yeah, so there's no question. Yeah, Gen AI was the star of the show. Everybody's talking, oh, we can do this, Gen AI this, we can do Gen AI that, and we can use ChatGPT this, we can use ChatGPT that. We have Open AI partnership this, we have Open AI partnership that. So obviously everybody is trying to take advantage and leverage all of the buzz around the space.
So if you look at kind of the space of the actual users, what are some of the main impacts that AI is going to have on their world, the knowledge management professionals and the enterprise search professionals?
Yeah, I mean, the main impact is we are now finally at a point where we have technologies that can truly read human language and understand human language in the same way that we do. And that never existed before, right? So that's why this is absolutely a very, very significant trend. This is an inflection point in our technology journey that has never came to be. Like many times in the past, we said, oh, we can build these systems that understand knowledge and semantic understanding. And they were all hacks, right? They were all hacks towards that goal. They were not true solutions. And now for the first time ever, we truly have technology that can do that can read and understand and even write language in the same way that we do. So how that's going to impact knowledge workers is going to make them a lot more productive. It's going to make us superhuman. It's going to make each one of us find the information we want and the answers we want way quicker. And not just find the answers. Once we find the answers, we put them together. We take an action based on that, where we can take these answers and say, okay, now write this document for me, create this presentation for me, write this email for me, create this tweets, social media for me, or Instagram, whatever. So we are going to be 100 times more productive than the average person that doesn't know how to leverage this technology.
Well, 100 times is hard to believe at this moment, but certainly much more productive. I agree with you there. So in your talk, you talked about neural search, right? And about large language models and how to use them for retrieval augmented generation in particular. And
Yes.
I think by now in this series of interviews, we've covered retrieval augmented generation a couple times. So I'm not going to ask you to explain that again. But
Yes.
it was very interesting, your talk, that you kind of dove into the role of fine-tuning. And you basically sketched out a whole number of scenarios where fine-tuning is not such a great idea. Can you kind of briefly summarize the gist of that?
Yes, I think a very good layman summary of it is our understanding of open book versus closed book recollection of information, right? So just imagine when you were at school taking an exam, if you had an open book where you could open the book and very quickly reference the book while you're solving a problem, obviously you're going to be a lot more accurate in your recollection than if you're trying to remember what it was in the book, and that's what's called closed book. So fine-tuning is more like closed book. Fine-tuning is more like we're trying to teach the language model to know about all of the data and knowledge in your book and retain that data in its memory, in its brain. So obviously when you do that, now you have the problem is when it's recovering it, it might not recover it exactly like it was. And that's what we refer to. Technically, we use the term hallucination. It's not the best term, to be honest, but that's the term we use, which means that it might introduce information that's not very factual in the response it generates, right? So, and versus open book, which is RAG. So RAG is really open book. So RAG is about, okay, we're going to have the book, we're going to have the knowledge available to the model, and we're going to very quickly find the best knowledge and then tell the model, here is the best knowledge about this question or about this prompt or this task. Now use that now to write your response. And obviously that makes the probability of it making up stuff a lot more lower, but has many other benefits. For example, we can now do explainability, explain how I came up with that result, because I have the book in front of me and I can point at the book and say, the result came from that sentence and that sentence, right? So it adds that capability. I can also do access control, where I can properly change the output depending on who's asking the question. When you're doing fine tuning, which is closed book, the whole book is in there, so it doesn't know how to limit when Jacob asks a question versus somebody else, how to limit what's going to say.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, there is many people worried about the closed book approach, meaning training the model, fine tuning with its own IP, because now the model knows about your IP. So is that now, are these weights inside of the model brains mine, meaning the owner of the data that provided that data, or is it whoever fine tuned the model for me? So it creates some intellectual property and copyright infringement potential, which is a big issue in the industry right now.
Basically, you're saying don't use fine tuning to introduce knowledge into the model, but use a RAG to introduce knowledge into the model. Only use fine tuning in that case if you want to maybe change the form or the style or things like that in a substantial way. Now we're talking really about the generative models, right? The models that synthesize and summarize and formulate the answers. And I fully agree with you that like if you take very capable models for that, there's not a really good reason to fine tune them in many cases. But when we look at neural search, which was the kind of the main topic of your talk, we use embeddings or vector search, right? And these are usually much smaller models. We don't generate embeddings with GPT-4, right? We generate them with smaller, more faster and nimble models. So do you see a role for fine-tuning in that space, for fine-tuning embeddings and re-rankers and sort of optimize the retrieval pipeline? Because RAG has really put this weight on retrieval where it matters a lot.
You're absolutely right. I mean, the efficacy and the capability of RAG depends on having a very, very good retrieval